Devin McGlockton puts in the game winner to claim victory over South Carolina. Vandy's back on the winning side.
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Corey Burton. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen each and every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed, win or lose. So visit FanDuel.com to get started. So this episode is going to be very basketball-centric. The game had just ended, and Vandy is back in the win column, right? We might talk a little football, a little bit of expectations there, some concerns with Vandy moving forward. But the most important part is they got in the win column. Devin McGlockton, clutch down the stretch, hit a big shot in traffic, pure Vandy style, to claim that victory over South Carolina. Now, here's the gist of the game here. Here's where there's concerns. There's all kind of things. This game ran the course of, or it was kind of like a roller coaster ride. Honestly, it just kind of ran the roller coaster of it's really good, really bad, really good again, and then it just kind of went back and forth for a little while, and then it just at the end, Vandy made the last play when it mattered the most. So that's one of the things I was really impressed with this team. I mean, the thing I'm concerned with still is how abysmal the three-point shooting was. 4 of 21, 19% from three-point land. Is that bad? Well, it ain't good. It ain't good. But they were able to prevail and get victory and all that stuff, and they were able to come out and beat South Carolina. So a lot of what the tale of this game obviously is Vandy's knack for creating turnovers, right? That's kind of the story of what this Vandy team's all about. This is probably one of the most resilient bunches I've ever seen play basketball. Like, this team, you look at them just kind of on the hoof, and you're like, well, I'm not real sure that this team should be that competitive, because size-wise, they don't match up. They kind of just look like I don't want to say it, but they kind of look like a high school team in stature almost, with with some of the guys they got coming out there. The legitimate point guards are good, but they just don't have any size down in the paint, and that's probably the biggest problem. And I hate to be negative Nancy, but like they escaped with one in this matchup with South Carolina. South Carolina, I felt like gave that game away, and there's some concerns, but I was impressed with. They got off to a better start, which I think that's plagued them in their last 2 losses. They were able to start a little bit faster. Here's kind of the tail of the tape. This is the ESPN. AJ Hoggard again was the leading scorer for Vandy with 14 points. The points are generally pretty evenly distributed. Ugasuk, I think is how you say his name. He had 20 points. He had an outstanding night. Really good second half for South Carolina. But from the field, they were pretty even. 3-pointers, it was 43% to 19%. That's what kept South Carolina in it. I think had South Carolina not shot 43% from three-point land, they probably would have lost this game. 25 turnovers is the biggest key. 25 to 12. And Vandy was able to turn them over 25 times, and they were able to get 22 points off of those turnovers. So they were able to capitalize on that. Fast break points, 5. They have 34 points in the paint, which that's Vandy's game. Okay, that's what they do well, and they were able to get the ball to the rim, and a lot of that was probably off of turnovers. But They were able to get the ball to the rim, and they were able to finish near the rim. Still can't shoot that well, right? They had a better night from the field. Just a normal, I hate to say a normal abysmal night from 3-point land. They were better in free throws, but at 76%, and saying that's better, still not good, but you know what? We'll take it, right? We'll take it. So these stats are pretty even. Rebounds, they lost the rebound battle. I think South Carolina out shooting them from behind the arc and out rebounding them, I think really kind of put a damper on it. But when you lack size, usually, especially in this league, you're going to concede rebound opportunities, and that's not ideal when you're trying to win a game. And if you're not a very accurate shooting team, if you're not getting rebounds and you're not getting second and third chance points or shot opportunities, I should say, you're not probably going to be able to capitalize off those. You're not going to be able to finish those points off. And that's usually going to net. That usually nets in being on the wrong side of a 10-0, 10-2, 12-0, 14-2 run, whatever the case may be. Like you get on the wrong side of a run because you can't rebound. That usually kills your momentum. And when you're behind on a run like that, and South Carolina got on some runs in the second half where they were down by 9 at several points in the game. I think they were down 7 at half. Vandy had chances to really kind of blow the game open, and they just couldn't. Like they had wide open looks from behind the arc, and they just could not knock them down. And I just don't understand how you could be that bad at shooting when you have all guards. Your guard, you're supposed to have somebody that can shoot, and there's not a soul. I feel like they need to find a walk on that. Hey, all you do is you come in and all you need to do is come in and make 6 threes throughout the course of the game. Just come in, hit 6 threes, and Vandy will win some of these games. Like Vandy would have beat Missouri had they been able to shoot. If they would have shot 28% from 3-point land, they would have beat Missouri. I don't know that they beat Mississippi State. Mississippi State is just good. They were in that game, and they were resilient. They kept every time Mississippi State would look like they're about to put them away, they come back. And they just kind of go on a run. And a lot of that is turnover based. And a lot of that is just because this team is just a tough out. And that, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, that goes a long way. That quality in a basketball team will go a long way in the future. Okay. It's not going to cover up every flaw. And it's not going to win you. But if you're in a tight ball game, that kind of grit, that kind of resiliency is the reason why Vandy was able to overcome all their flaws and all their mistakes tonight against South Carolina, because South Carolina should have won that game. South Carolina had open looks too. South Carolina was moving the ball well, but they could not finish around the rim. And Vandy did a good job of making sure that didn't happen. They couldn't hit free throws at certain times, right? They were 74%, I think, or somewhere along those lines. But their misses were crucial key misses, right? And they couldn't capitalize off of buckets either. I mean, things that were inside the arc, it seemed like they struggled more inside the arc than they did outside the arc. They might have been better outside the arc, actually. I think they were 41% from the field. But Vandy, they played really good defense. Devin McGlockton was at 6'9", he doesn't have a whole lot of size, but he was tough around the basket. Eventually that comes back to get you if you don't have a whole lot of size. But I mean, this team plays really, really good defense. But what I really liked about them, you cause turnovers, you give yourself a chance if you can put the other team on their heels. And I think the reason they won this game, the reason they were able to hold off South Carolina, I think is because of the start. I think you get off to a good start, you have a good halftime lead. I think that, in basketball, when you have a halftime lead, most of the time, that team, unless you just completely crap the bed, that team usually comes out and that team usually prevails, right? And more times than not, in this league, you're probably rarely going to have blowouts. I mean, Tennessee blew out Georgia. Florida blew out Tennessee a couple weeks or last week by 30 points or something like that. There's going to be occasional blowouts in this league, in this sport. But for the most part, this league is outstanding. There's going to be tight games. Like Missouri went on the road and beat Florida. South Carolina took Auburn to the wire, and Auburn had to fight to finish them off and hold them off. Vandy got a tough win. So South Carolina is 0-4 in the conference, but 2 tough luck losses, 2 late game losses where they just couldn't finish. Really, they could not. They had a chance to go on a run there late in the second half to kind of put this game out of reach. But every time they would start to go on a run, Vandy would turn them over, and then they would stop the run, and then they would just kind of go back and forth for a little while, and then South Carolina would start inching back closer in the game. Vandy would kind of put a stop to it. So, South Carolina's runs could never overtake Vandy, and that was the key to this game. Vandy was able to minimize the damage on South Carolina's runs, and then they were able to maintain throughout the second half. They never really went on a run themselves in the second half. They had a much better first half as far as that goes than the second half, but they were able to hold off South Carolina enough to be able to hit that big shot from Devin McGlockton there at the end of the game where he got an and one, and they won 66-63. So, but overall, really good game. AJ Hoggard is proving to be a star. Tyler Tanner, he's starting to kind of figure some things out. He's going to be a guy for us once the light bulb comes on, and then once Jason Edwards gets fully healthy, you're going to have a nice little 1-2-3 punch from the guards. But they're going to be able to give us something. But just until you get bigger, which probably won't happen until the offseason, until you can get bigger inside the paint, you're going to struggle. So, what are we concerned with this team? Well, the shooting, that's concerning. And then we'll have some football stuff a little bit here. We'll talk about all of that next. All right, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same-game parlays, and so much more. And, I know this weekend with Kansas City and Detroit coming in, I know I'm on Rob Brown, whatever his receptions prop is, I'm taking the over on that. And I don't know if I'm going to take any game spreads, actually. I think I'm just going to take props for the NFL playoffs. I'm going to take a Derrick Henry touchdown. I think I'm going to take and I'll have to cruise around and see what some of the props are, because there's going to be some interesting numbers. I usually like to peruse right before kickoff to kind of see where they set the lines. And sometimes I like to go live betting and okay, well, I'm going to bet this, or I'm going to go and bet the over, stuff like that. So anyway, but like me, you need to visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen each and every day. Thank you. But if you need a second listen, Locked On SEC is the place to go. Chris Gordy, phenomenal job. The Squad Show, it's dropping, and let's just say it's interesting. We have some really good topics of conversation, and you're going to enjoy it. We kind of get off the rails a little bit. It's a lot of fun. So anyway, but big game against South Carolina. I think it proves all the qualities that we knew Mark Byington was going to bring in year one. And year one, you usually have no idea what to expect year one, right? That's kind of the overarching, like any coaching search, any new hire anywhere, you're always thinking year one, we've got to figure out what we have and what we can make, right? Brand new roster. We don't know how they mesh. Did really well, 13-1 in the non-conference slate, but 2-2 in the SEC, which is good. It's respectable. But I think there's some concerns moving forward. Now, I talked about how much I like the grit of this team, how hard they play, how clean they play. They don't make a ton of mistakes, as far as careless things, and they're not committing stupid fouls, and they're playing with a lot of energy, which is something you didn't see last year. Like last year, South Carolina would have blown us out. Last year, we would be the 0-4 team right now, getting blown out in every contest. There wasn't much to talk about. This year's group has a lot of energy, and they play an exciting brand of basketball. So I think with this team, you have to be patient. That's the key. You have to be patient because you can see it. You can see what's coming, and it's obvious what they need. But you can tell the foundation is there. They play hard for him. Mark Byington, great out of the timeouts. It just seems like he's pretty well in tune to what he's doing. I just don't think the roster's quite right. The roster composition is not right. That's our problem, right? And it's not that these guys are terrible. These are all really good basketball players. But I think you're putting them in a situation that, in essence, puts them behind the eight ball a little bit because they don't have the size. They're all the same type of player. They're all the same guy, which is, mostly all the same guy, where they all do the same things well, and they all need improvement in the same exact areas. So you're really kind of locked into like one style of basketball. And if you can't get to the rim and you don't, and you're just off, it's going to be rough shooting wise. And it's just a very streaky team and a very small team. So they have to get creative in how they move the basketball up and down the court. And they have to play exceptional defense. They have to play exceptionally well on the defensive rebounding into the floor, and they have to get better at rebounding. But that's the main concern, I think, is the roster composition, and everybody can see that. I don't think any sane Vandy fan would tell you that Mark Byington's a bad coach or that he's doing a bad job. I think, given the circumstances of what Vandy was facing, I don't think it was quite as easy to get guys from the portal. I think it's really easy as a guard to want to buy into this offense, right? To want to buy into this scheme. Watching James Madison play in last year's tournament and just kind of talking to Mark Byington, if I'm a guard, I'm going to love coming to this team and playing. But like as a big man, like it's tough because you got to find somebody that can run. You got to find an athletic guy that's not a paint clogger. And, like what Zach Edey was for Purdue, they're not running a gun. They're playing a half-court style of basketball, and they're just, hey, come in the paint if you want to. Zach Edey's going to send it to Kingdom Come when you come into the paint, right? Vandy doesn't have that. Vandy, they need an athletic big guy, somebody like Asa Newell at Georgia, who's 6'11", extremely athletic, can run the floor, right? They need somebody with a little bit of size. They need a couple of people with a little bit of size, right? McGlockton's good. He's just 6'9". If he was 6'11", he'd be amazing, right? If he was, and that's just a matter of 3 inches, but like that makes a difference. If Devin McGlockton, I wanted to call him Dexter McGlockton, but if Devin McGlockton was 7 feet tall he'd be an amazing player. He'd be consensus All-American, and I think Vandy would be in a much different situation here because they do have a little bit of size. Jalen Carey, if he was a little bit bigger, I think Vandy could win some size battles. But you have all these guards, and you have to play small ball, and you have to play fastball, right? Which is 40 minutes of hell type, Nolan Richardson type scheme, right? Those are things you have to do. You have to get creative. So the biggest concerns to me is the shooting. You have all these guards, but you don't have any pure shooters. And watching Vandy play, it is painfully obvious that you need a sharpshooter or two. You need a JJ Redick. You need a guy that's going to sit back there, Steph Curry, that's going to sit back there and bang threes all night long, right? Because you're going to get open looks. You just are. You average 19% from behind the arc. You're going to get open looks. Nobody's going to guard you out there because you're not hitting that shot. 4 of 21, you're not hitting that shot. So why, as an opposing coach, why am I going to guard you heavily on the perimeter? Because I know I'm gonna let you shoot that 3 shot, and I'm gonna get the rebound and go take it down and score. Like, I'm gonna let you have that until you show me that you're gonna start making them on a consistent basis. That's what they're going to get. So, not saying Mark Byington's a bad coach, but if I'm evaluating this tape, if I'm self-scouting and saying, okay, how do I beat Vandy? You just let them shoot threes and you rebound. As long as you can rebound, let them shoot threes. Rebound. Be patient because those missed 3-pointers will add up. And you can go on a run of your own. So that's how, if I'm self-scouting Vandy, that's what I'm doing. I am being careful with the ball, and I'm letting you shoot threes. I'm gonna let you shoot threes, right? I'm not gonna leave you wide open, but I'm also not gonna be in a hurry to close out on you because you're gonna miss it. Like, why do I need to waste time, energy, and manpower closing you out on the wing when you're gonna brick that 9 times out of 10? You're gonna brick it. 2 times out of 10, you're going to 8 times out of 10, you're going to brick it. They're about 20% clip, which is bad, right? So why am I going to close out on that? That's the question. So concerning, I've got to find a way. I've got to find a shooter. I've got to create one. I've got to say, listen, Tyler Nickel, you stay in the gym and you shoot 500 threes a day. You're going to go on the Larry Bird workout. You're going to shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot. Hey, Tyler Tanner, we need you to shoot. You're going to be forced to shoot. Jason Edwards, hey, practice shooting because that's what you're going to have to do. Vandy's going to have to be better shooting from distance. Perimeter 3-point shooting is going to have to be the key to Vandy's victory. So you're going to have to work on that. So anyway, big victory. Don't want to take anything away from it. The turnovers, the grit, all that stuff is absolutely amazing. Keep that up. Add the shooting element to it. And then in the offseason, go get you a sharpshooter. Go get you a big man or two and get some size so you can compete inside. And then you'll start to move up the charts. Your conference record will improve greatly. But the first thing is fix the shooting. Be better shooting. That's got to happen. It's got to happen. But big win, 66-63. Grit, turnovers were the story, and Vandy just gutted one out. So that's good. And we'll wrap up the show here next. All right, Prizepicks. This message is brought to you by Prizepicks, the place to get real money. sports action. With over 10 million members and billions in winnings, Prizepicks has changed the game in daily fantasy sports. Whether it's the playoffs or regular season, Prizepicks has made it easier than ever to win big while enjoying all the football action. So now it's playoff time, and there's no better way to get in on the action than with Prizepicks. Here's how it works. You simply pick more or less on at least 2 players. And if your picks hit, you could win up to 1,000x your cash. That's right, 1,000 times your money just by making a few simple picks. For me, it's all about the hot takes this season. This week on Prizepicks, I'm looking at Lamar Jackson for more than 250 passing yards and Travis Kelce for more than 100 receiving or more than 70 receiving yards. Sorry. It's fun to predict and easy to play. Plus, with Prizepicks Flex Play, you can still double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. And with the app, you get your winnings fast, sometimes in as little as 15 minutes. So, are you ready to run your game this football season? Well, download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right. Just $50 for just playing. So don't wait. Take your game to the next level with Prizepicks. Prizepicks, run your game. All right, we are wrapping up the show. Locked On Vandy, at Locked On Vandy on all social media platforms. Make sure you follow the show, like, subscribe. Let me know what you like, what you don't like. Shout out to Zaylin Wood for commenting. Appreciate that. And that dude's going to be a force. I hate to be opposing offense coordinators and having to plan for that guy. That guy's going to be tough. Him and Corday Sidnor are quite the tandem. And it's going to be this defensive line is going to be really, really good. So as we kind of wrap up, some things I've been thinking about football wise, man. And as we get inch closer to the season and you think about, the guiding question is, can Vandy do par or better next season? Par is 6-6. Better is obviously better. Seven wins or more, right? Can Vandy get there? Okay. And a lot of it's gonna come down to who they're playing, what those teams are like throughout the course of the season, and then what Vandy can do to better themselves, how they can execute better, right? And it's a lot of the weaknesses are the passing game on offense. Well, the passing game really on both sides of the ball, defending it and attacking, right? So Vandy, to take the next step, they're going to have to develop that vertical passing game, right? And I think they're well on their way to doing that, but they've just got to find ways to get Pavia comfortable in the pocket first and to get comfortable with being able to throw on time and on rhythm to guys he believes in. Trent Hudson, I think, is a familiar face, so that'll be helpful. But Chance Fitzgerald, talented kid out of Nolensville, local kid. So I think you do get that local flair. And shout out to the episode I did, a few days ago about really gaining a fan base and really building the fan base with local kids. I think the more you can get those type of kids back into Middle Tennessee, back into the Nashville area, he played just right down the road at Nolensville. So there's going to be a lot of familiarity there with the area. There's going to be fans that come in just to support him from Nolensville that are black and blue, and the Knights are going to be they're going to be supporting Chance. And so you're going to get that element too. I think that's a good recruiting strategy as far as recruiting fans and a really good football player at that. Didn't quite get his chance at Virginia Tech. I think that wide receiver room was crowded, and I just think he just wasn't sure about his opportunity. And then I think, as Virginia Tech crumbled throughout the year, I think he just felt like he needed to get out there and home was calling. And that's going to be a fun week too when he goes up there, and he's going to be jacked up for that game. So defensively, it's building pieces, right? And a lot of the people coming in from the portal are short-term guys that can help right away. And Clark Lee, I guarantee he's excited about it. I bet he's doing I bet he did a polar bear cannonball with his clothes on into his pool, right? Hopefully he didn't do it like over the weekend because it was probably frozen solid. But nonetheless, he's excited about what he's got coming back on defense now. Zaylen Wood, the transfer, but not really a transfer, but him coming back is kind of like, hey, we got this guy, not necessarily out of the portal, but it just feels like you added a piece there with him coming back because he wasn't around much last year. And he's a really good integral piece of this defensive line. And so you got to be excited about that. So there's a lot of good things on the horizon. We're going to break all those things down as we move between now and spring practice, and then throughout spring practice, and then through the latter half of the spring into the summer, and then into fall camp. We'll be ready and have you primed and ready to roll for football season. There's plenty of headlines. There's plenty of storylines. There's plenty of things to break down. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. But Shazia Pete, still waiting on a decision from him until he signs. Vandy has just as good of a shot as anybody else because of Diego Pavia. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. We're going to get you ready for the weekend on the next episode. Thanks for listening. Locked on Vandy. Find us, like, subscribe, all that stuff. Tell your friends, even if they're not Vandy fans. Tell them to subscribe because at some point they may want to hear something about Vandy, which I live in a bizarre world. I never thought I'd say that, but it's happening. I'm almost to 600 subscriptions. Something's going right. And you guys are coming and you guys are listening. And I definitely appreciate that. So with that, see you guys later. See you next time. Anchor down. Behave yourselves. Peace.